Let's go straight to Robert Bates now. He's a research director at the Centre for Migration Control and joins us to talk about, all things illegal migrants. Very, very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, there's an awful lot of stories. I want to start, though, with the small boats crossings. The small number of people crossing the country this year has crossed the 10,000 mark. It's the earliest point in the year since records began. I mean, it was about 5,000 this time last year, or a couple of years ago, and now it's at 10,000. They had to get to June for that. Now, a lot of that may be we've had balmy, calm conditions, and that's made it easier. But there's no doubt at all those gangs have not been smashed by Keir Starmer, have they?
Far from it. And when you look at what the actual impact that smashing the gangs has had, which has perhaps meant that there's been a short supply of dinghies occasionally, well, that's something that's been circumnavigated quite easily because we now see that the boat sizes have increased astronomically. The numbers of people coming in on boats have increased nearly by 50% in some instances. So we need to realise that where we are now is in a much worse situation than where we were this time last year. At least last year, although the Conservative Party really did botch the Rwanda plan by failing to commit to leaving the ECHR, at least there was a recognition that if you want to stop people coming across the channel, you need to have a strong deterrent in place. Fortunately, of course, the first thing the Labour Party did when they came into government was to scrap that and to focus all their efforts on the people smugglers rather than actually addressing those flows. And the result is, as we're seeing 10,000 hit, more early than at any point in any other year, 41% up on this time last year, and there doesn't seem to be anything in sight that would actually start to.
I mean, we were told, weren't we? Keir Starmer was just saying, look, the Tories just didn't have good relations with the French, and you have to have a conversation with Macron, you have to negotiate, you have to, actually just, talk to people. That was going to solve it. I mean, great. It's just not working out as well as many had planned. I mean, how much worse is it going to get?
Well, I think on current trends, we probably will hit 50,000 this year. I could well see without anything changing dramatically, we will be reaching a record high of that. And that, of course, then puts us in a very perilous situation over the course of this Parliament where we could see up to 250,000 people coming across the channel. Of course, that's a forecast going forward. But you're absolutely right. The idea that the French were going to bail us out of this problem was absolutely pie in the sky. Yeah. Thinking we've sent them, £500 million to try and address some of those crossings. We've seen very little return on investment on that. They've done very little. They've been handing out life jackets in some instances as well. The fact of the matter is that if you want to solve the illegal migration crisis gripping your country, you have to take measures yourself. You can't rely on other people to solve it for you. That's not something that Keir Starmer seems prepared to do. He's got this commitment to international collaboration. He likes to see himself as a statesman in that regard. Yeah,
but again, it's like we could all collaborate. Yeah, great. But it turns out all the collaboration seems to be with the smuggling gangs because we've got the latest stats in terms of the huge amounts of money being spent on the migrant hotels. I mean, we had this absurd story yesterday, over the weekend. Serco, one of the three big providers of migrant properties. So you've got illegal migrants here claiming asylum here for years. The Labour Party at the last election said we're not going to have people in hotels anymore. And then people said, well, they're going into private accommodation. That's going to end up being competing with families for the same accommodation. Oh, well, we'll deal with that. No, they're just busy signing contracts with companies like Serco, who then sign contracts with local landlords offering them 5 years, not 5 months, 5 years guaranteed rent, paying all the utilities, council tax, paying everything guaranteed, double the local rent. What a surprise. Makes it even harder for local people to rent those homes themselves. Why would a landlord go to a local person when they can guarantee that income from Serco and from the taxpayer? They are, it would appear, whatever they say to us in public, gearing up for this to be for the long haul.
Well, exactly, and that is the big change with these contracts, the fact that they're now 5 years that landlords will be paid the rent for individuals being housed. And I think that it really is, in a way, an admittance of defeat from the Labour Party that they realise that they won't be able to bring the asylum backlog down under manageable control over the course of this Parliament. Of course, they're actually introducing measures as well that would make it more difficult for them to clear the backlog, to make sure that those hotels are empty. That meaning those individuals that get refugee status eventually have a longer period of time to stay in those hotels once their asylum application is approved. So they're doing really all they can to clog up the hotel system. The use of houses, as it now seems, of course, has huge impacts on local communities, not just in terms of the pressure, but in terms of individuals now being placed in these areas as well.
It seems like they just want the problem to sort of go away from the front pages. And if you don't notice it, if people are just in these homes as opposed to in a hostel and everyone can see there's crowds of, young men, outside a hostel, it's more noticeable and people could complain about it, and just make it kind of go away and dissipate somehow in the community. People won't notice. People are going to notice. One thing they've also noticed is the fact that we've seen story after story after story of people who commit offences, come to this country, commit offences, and then allowed to stay in this country. And just again and again and again, especially these higher tribunal decisions. But announcement from the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper today that asylum seekers will be denied the right to stay in the UK if they've been convicted of sexual offences. Apparently that wasn't the case already. Terrorists, war criminals and any other criminals whose offences carry a sentence of 1 year or more can already be refused asylum under the Refugee Convention. But under these changes, that'll be extended to someone who commits a sexual offence, which would, regardless of the length of their sentence. I mean, I think most people are just flabbergasted that wasn't already the case. For me, I'm thinking even shoplifting, certainly a third offence shoplifting, bye, you're out. But the reality is we can refuse these people asylum as much as we want. We can have it all the niceties in black and white in the law, but it doesn't actually mean these people ever get thrown out of the country.
No, quite right. I mean, I'm glad that the government is finally recognising some link between crime and open borders. That's something we've been talking about for quite a while, but it seems to have taken a while to cotton on. The key point in these plans, of course, is that they have shortened the length that an immigration tribunal judge has to process these asylum claims that will inevitably, and these legal claims that will inevitably result from those
haven't they shortened it to something like 24 weeks? So basically half a year still.
Well, exactly. You've still got a fair old period of time to gather your case. And of course, we know from those endless examples that we get given that the immigration tribunals are hardly on the side of the British public when it comes to actually seeing common sense and removing these individuals. You're absolutely right as well. Why are we just stopping at those that have committed sexual offences? It should be individuals that have come into this country and then, committed any crime. There's, of course, the other point as well, that if many of these individuals will have come into the country in this regard with these plans illegally, and therefore they shouldn't have been given the opportunity in the first place to commit sexual crimes as well. So, there's a whole manner of loopholes and problems with this plan. I think it's been brought out because, of course, we have elections later this week. We have seen horrible news stories such as the 10,000 mark being reached, and they're trying to cover their tracks and to look like they're looking tough. Yeah,
I just don't think anyone's going to believe any of the main parties on this anymore. Just finally, I must ask you about the Lib Dem MP Vera Hobhouse. She's the MP for Bath in the West Country, and she has backed a campaign that would hand the vote to over 4 million new people, in not just foreign citizens, but also those who have arrived here illegally. And it's a new report from the Migrant Democracy Project, and she's sponsored the report and launched in Parliament. And basically, they say, look, millions of people aren't represented, and migrant residents should have the right to vote. I mean, the whole point of the nation state is that citizens have certain rights by dint of their citizenship. And basically saying, if you can get here, you get a say in how the country's run. That is madness.
Exactly. The whole point of having a vote is you have a stake in society. You want it to do well. You're casting. It's a responsibility. It's something you take seriously. This is electoral gerrymandering. I mean, these illegal migrants aren't going to be voting for the Reform Conservative Party, are they? So it's clearly a recognition that the Lib Dems rely on others to
although they'd have to register to vote, and we might know where they are, which would be useful. But there we are.